Yes, good evening. We are officially live for the virtual release of Fertile Ground, One Woman's Journey Through Infertility, where Hope and Heartbreak Coexist. Get into
Mhm.
that title for a second.
Okay.
Get into that title for a second. Let me repeat that because I don't think they heard me the first time, Quisha.
Please say it to him again, please.
Okay, we are live for the virtual release of Fertile Ground, One Woman's Journey Through Infertility, where hope and heartbreak
Coexist.
coexist. Okay, meaning not one or the other, but
Mm-hmm.
where they come together and live
Mm-hmm. They
together,
go on that journey together.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not going to do too much talking tonight. I actually have the author of Fertile Ground live with me this evening, Miss Quisha Umemba. Did I say that right, Quisha?
You said it perfectly.
Oh,
Perfectly.
kudos to me. And tonight, we're just going to talk a little bit about this journey, okay? One
Mhm.
woman's journey. This is Quisha's journey that we're going to be discussing tonight. And I want to thank you all for joining us for this live virtual release of her book. It has been quite the journey. Listen,
Mhm.
as I read the pages of Quisha's book, I had no idea because first, let me say, I had the absolute pleasure of publishing Quisha's previous book, which was a totally different genre. Right? So in 2024, Keisha was the visionary author of public health entrepreneurship. She was navigating the intersection of purpose and profit. She has some amazing co authors to join her on this journey. This was in 2024.
Mhm.
However, Quisha talks about her infertility journey being nearly 5 years, which means that during the time that Quisha published that book, she was actually going through the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I remember because when I signed up with you, I signed up for a two-book deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finished that book and I was going through everything and I was like, man, I don't have another book in you. And you said, Quisha, you have another book in
I
you.
did. I had no idea. I had no idea at the time that it would be this book.
Yeah.
But I definitely knew that you had another book in you. And I kept saying, hey, you ready to do your solo book? And you kept saying, not yet. I
Mhm.
think you were even considering some other solo book at the time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
And I still want to do it. It's more business related.
uh-huh.
But I have to let this breathe. And I have to be obedient. This book was
Absolutely.
being obedient. So yeah, that's down the line.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we are in the present now, so let's get into fertile
Okay.
ground, shall we? Talk to us a little bit, Quisha, about how this transition came about, how you went from public health entrepreneurship to then publishing a book about infertility.
Yeah, it's so funny. Whoever follows me as an Amazon author is gonna be like, this girl's all over the place with these books. So I'm just a multi-faceted, as many of us,
Mhm.
multi-dimensional, multi-passionate person.
Yes.
And there's more, I put a post in one of my Facebook groups not too long ago, and I said, you can be a founder and a mother and a business owner, and and all of these things, right? Um, this was I guess what I can say about the way that I write is it is a reflection of who I am and what I go through in life. So public health
Mhm.
entrepreneurship was that. For those of you that don't know me, I am a public health entrepreneur. I'm a consultant. I am a registered nurse by trade, but I've been in business for almost 7 years now with Umemba Health, which is our public health training and educational technology company.
Mm.
And so, as you can imagine, this has been almost a 5 year journey of secondary infertility, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. And so, I built my business as I was going through this process. And because of the miraculous ending to this story,
Mm.
when I was going through it, I'm like, oh God, why am I going through this? Why is
Right.
this so hard? Why is this not coming easy? I'm doing all the things right, or so you say all the things right.
Right.
And Yeah, people actually, when they would hear this story, were saying, you got to write this in a book.
Mm.
You have to write, you have to share this, right? And I did start sharing it in podcasts, and of course anybody who will listen. My therapist, and I write about it in the book, she says you heal when you talk about things. I'm a
Mhm.
sharer. Sometimes I'm an overshare, right? But it makes me a good teacher and a good trainer and a good
Yes.
coach, that
Yes.
type of thing. And so earlier this year, when I decided, okay, I'm going to become a fertility doula, and I hope you ask me about that in a little bit.
Oh, you know.
And and I started training to be a fertility, or I'm sorry, yoga instructor in yoga for fertility and other things. And I thought, this is probably the perfect time that I need to go ahead and put this story, my journey, in a book. And also, I thought, wouldn't this be sweet if I actually launched it on his first birthday, which is today?
Yay.
And
Happy birthday.
so it just, yeah, the timing was like, okay, Whitney, I know I was like, I don't have a book, but I have a book and it needs to be ready in like 4 months.
No, you
So
reached out to me in May. You was like, I'm gonna release it on his first birthday. And I was like, okay, yes. When's his birthday? Oh, July 27th. I'm like, oh, it's May.
was it May? Oh my God, I feel so bad.
No, but we got it done. The book is incredible.
Yeah.
Your story is so powerful. And so let's talk about that story for just a little bit, right?
Okay.
So you are married to whom you refer to as an amazing man, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
Okay, you're
uh-huh.
married to an amazing man who, upon you guys marrying, did not have any children, right?
Yes, unfortunately. Um, because as I mentioned in the book, I had prayed and asked God to send me. I had 33 qualities that I wanted in my next husband.
Hmm.
And my husband met 30 of those 33 qualities. And one of them, I was like, God, please, please, please let him have kids because I'm done. Tooth for tied, done.
Hmm.
And yes, he's an amazing man, but unfortunately, he had not had any children.
Hmm. Unfortunately. Okay. You meet this amazing man who does not have any children, obviously wants children, and you had already had two sons. Yes.
Mhm. Yes.
So, when your husband made it clear that he wanted children, obviously, let's talk about what the beginning stages, what that looked like.
Yeah, the very, very beginning, a girlfriend of mine. So my husband is West African. He's Nigerian, Igbo culture, and or Igbo tribe. And a girlfriend of mine from Ivory Coast said, "Wait a minute, he's Nigerian,
Hmm.
and he's the first son, and he
Hmm.
doesn't have children.
Okay.
Girl, you know you got to give him a baby, right?" And
Right.
that's how the book opens. That's the first chapter. Girl, you know you got to give him a baby. We had what's called a marriage contract. We didn't sign anything, but we had a marriage contract that said we would have one child together. And there were all kinds of things like, I don't want to pump my own gas. We have to go on 2 vacations a year, one with the kids and one with just us. And there was just this long list of things because after my divorce, I said my next marriage is going to be very much like a business deal, right? So I
Hmm.
came in very business minded of, okay, these are the things that I want. This is what I can offer. And so we had originally agreed on one, but I just assumed that as he continued to fall in love with me, he would be satisfied with my 2 kids. You see how you're laughing? That's how my therapist laughed. She was like, "Girl, what's wrong with you? You
Crazy
just
girl.
She was like, "You're just living it." I was in La La Land. And so the first 4 years of our marriage, there was the undertone, and I kept putting off, well, wait till we buy a house, and wait till we pay off the debt, and wait till we get settled, and wait till this, and wait till my oldest is a little bit older. And I was fresh off of a divorce somewhat. And I kept pushing it off, and the age kept getting closer to 40. And then finally one day he was like, we really need to do this. Like, I really want to do this.
Mhm.
So that's how it all started. And I was you see how I'm looking? I was very much anxious about the
Mhm.
process and swore I would never, ever have another child just because of experiences that I had with my first two. And that is what started our journey.
Mhm. And so you started
She's
this
like,
journey, and this man finally said, "Look, Quisha, I'm not playing with you no more."
yeah, yeah.
Yes, when you finally started this journey, of course, you had already had two kids naturally.
Yep.
And so you just thought, okay, well, let me just get pregnant already, right?
Well, my tubes were tied. And
Uh-huh.
so I said, okay, we're going to tie our tubes, which is what we did. First thing, we went and saw I had fibroids on the lining of my uterus. And so my reproductive endocrinologist said, before we untie your tubes, we got to get rid of the fibroids because an embryo is not going to be able to implant on the uterine lining with fibroids there. Never had any symptoms of fibroids. So I was completely shocked. So the first thing was we had to have that surgery. And then we had to have the tubal reversal. Now, mind you, everything that I'm sharing in my journey was paid out of pocket.
Mm,
A tubal reversal is not considered a medical necessity. The
mhm.
fibroidectomy, they were small, they were just on the lining of my uterus, was not a medical necessity either. So those are the first two things that we had to do before we could start trying to get pregnant.
Mm. So I imagine that you thought, okay, we're just going to get over this little hump of the tubal reversal,
Mhm.
removing the fibroids, and then, okay, everything should be good to go. I can get pregnant again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But ultimately, you discovered that there was another roadblock after accomplishing those first two, right?
Yes. So I woke up from anesthesia with the tubal, and my doctor said, one of your tubes was too badly damaged. We weren't able to save it, but you got one good tube left. And
Mm,
that's exactly how he said. He's like, but you got one good tube left. Now, I am a nurse. I said, I'm not a retired nurse. I'm still licensed, but I haven't been clinical in over a decade. So I did not know you could still conceive with one tube. I was devastated. I'm
mm.
like, wait a minute, we just paid all this money and I got half of the results. So I was the outcome. I was not happy at all. But lo and behold, he was right. We got pregnant 9 months later.
Interesting. And so I'm sure both you and your husband were overjoyed at getting pregnant 9 months later, right? After having that tubal reversal. But of course, this was in what year?
20, this is 26. So this had to be 22.
Okay. So you got pregnant soon as your tubes were reversed. But of course, your son just celebrated his first birthday today, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, what happened with that
Lots.
pregnancy?
A
Yeah.
lot happened in between that without giving away too much because you got to get the book to get all of the
Period.
details. So that pregnancy did end in miscarriage at 8 weeks.
Mhm.
And we tried again for 12 months after then to get pregnant. And I'm like, okay, something is going on. Like, it shouldn't be taking this long to get pregnant. We go back to the RE and he does a procedure and he looks to see that my tube has scarred over with scar tissue. And now it is blocked again, leaving IVF as the only option.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, of course, like you said, we don't want to give away too much because we do want everyone to get the book. In fact, Quisha is offering such an amazing deal on the digital copy of the book tonight, and we want you guys to go ahead and grab it. So make sure you click that link there to be able to get your copy. But in the meantime, Quisha, just a little bit more, okay? Because obviously this is a very extensive journey. We really
Yeah.
don't even have the time to cover nearly 5 years of
Yeah.
your journey in this short amount of time, and we want to spare some people, right? We don't want to spoil it too much for them. We want them to get their copy and read it for themselves. However, over the course of nearly 5 years, you experienced setback after setback after
Mhm.
setback when it came
Mhm.
to trying to conceive again, right? Ultimately,
Mhm.
you said the doctor said your only option was to go through IVF, right? In the book, we discover that even the IVF journey wasn't quite what you expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
So this journey tested not only your physical health,
Mhm.
right? Not only your mental health, because you've already said, yeah, my therapist said so. You sought some counseling during the journey as well, right? So it sought your physical health, your mental health, it tested your marriage, and it tested your
Mhm.
faith as well. So
Yeah.
let's dive a little bit into how we have come to see the Quisha that is before us
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. That's a great question. I am a super high functioning person.
Mm-hmm.
Times when I've had depression, I've been super high functioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Times when I've been in and I call infertility, and I have secondary infertility, but any infertility, I call it a spiritual, mental, emotional crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely an identity crisis. And one of the things that I would do is just bury myself in work in my
Mm,
business, right? COVID, a lot of this I was going through during COVID and at the tail end of COVID. And so we had plenty of contracts and, lots to do and plenty of things to keep me busy. And during the time, I never really allowed myself initially to process, to grieve, to do the work that would make me whole and healthy. But I'm doing all of that now. And
mm,
so part of that, I like to say this book and what I'm doing as a fertility doula is taking that pain that I went through and turning it into purpose. Because one of the things that I came to realize during this is that infertility affects so many women, but
mm.
especially women of color. And we are not talking about it. I
Nobody
would say
talking about it.
very, very few people. I would stay up for hours, 2, 3 in the morning, trying to find someone that looked like me, that
Mm,
was going through my experience, especially when the recommendation was to use donor eggs. I don't know if we'll get to
mm,
that, and could not find it. Or finally, after months, found one person, that might have been talking about on a YouTube, or I will find Facebook groups. Those are a lot more popular. And so, yeah, this Quisha now is healed and whole. And yes, I did have the outcome, right, that I was going for. I know some women are still in that waiting and they have not necessarily got that outcome. But one of the things that I will say of all of those that you talked about, financial, mental, emotional, marital strain, and I talked about that in the book as well, is the identity crisis.
yeah.
And it's just important for me to get the message on grounding yourself, rooting yourself in faith, in your identity, and knowing who you are and whose you are, regardless of what your body can and cannot do. And
Yes.
so this new Quisha also is, I'm closer to, what is this? I'm almost 44 and a half. I'll say that. And
You a
so
big
I,
one.
thank you, love. And so I'm also at the age where I'm like, I've probably lived half of my life, you know?
Mm,
I hope that I live longer, than 90 years old. But if I've lived half of my life, I want to do it and I always feel like I've walked in God's purpose, but I do think that God puts you in certain positions and allows certain things to happen because it's in alignment with your destiny. And so this Quisha before you is going to do things a little different for the second half of her life. And I think that everything that God has put me through,
mhm.
everything I've had to endure and persevere to overcome, has been so that I can do that for the second half of my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. Listen, you said that you went through all of that to get to this point. You implement a lot of things now that contribute to your wholeness.
Yeah.
But obviously, I can imagine that you hit a breaking point before you realize that these are the things that I need to start doing for myself in order to heal. What
Yeah.
did that breaking point look like, and what steps did you take after that to get to
Oh, that's so funny. It was a breaking point, but it was also a blessing.
that?
It was 2025. No, my baby was born in 2025. It was 2024,
Mhm,
um, May, and we had just our last IVF cycle had just failed. And the
mhm,
doctor had just said, it's an egg quality issue. We don't think you're going to be successful with your own eggs. We recommend you use donor eggs. And I was like, "Phew," like the world's that I was, wait a minute, I've had 2 kids naturally. That
mhm,
was not something that I was expecting to hear. And I also, for those of you that are healthcare professionals that work in this space, I think it's important that when a woman comes in your office and she is starting to go through the process, whether it's IUI, IVF, whatever the starting point is, there should be a full blown conversation that says, this is what the journey looks like when you're trying to build your family. And I
mhm,
say build your family now. That's something that my therapist helped. I used to say, oh, have a baby, have a baby, have a baby. And she said, Quisha, I want you to change your terminology because you're getting caught up on physically having this baby come from your body when there's many ways for you to build a family. And
mhm,
that's one of the things that I focus on now as a fertility doula is what I call alternative pathways to parenthood. And
mhm,
so back to my healthcare professionals, I think I would not have had such a nosedive, fall off the cliff, severe depression if I, at the very first consultation, was told we're going to do IVF, um, the more rounds that you have increases your chance of success. The average number is 3 rounds, right?
Mhm.
Um, at some point, we may say, this is the next step. And that next step could include egg donor, sperm donor, whatever it is. But
Mhm.
there's such, the only term I can think of is um, toxic positivity, right?
Mhm.
There's this, oh, it's going to work. One more time, it's going to work. It's going to work.
Right.
We do this, we do this. And honestly, it's just a big experiment, especially the first time. It's science and it works a lot of the times, but it doesn't work a lot of the times as well. And so I'm very big on women don't need to be lied to. We don't need to be sugarcoated. We need to have the full scope of the plan of care that may exist. And that was the breaking point for me. That was when I told my husband, I love you. You're going to be a wonderful father. I think you deserve to have your own. It's not going to be me. I did not sign up to go this far. I'm going. I ain't signed up to go this far, right? So I'm gonna let you do what you need to do. Go find somebody. You're still young, you're good looking, it won't be a problem. And I was adamant. I called his dad, I called one of his best friends, if you're watching, hi. And I was like, I'm gonna let him go. And everybody was like, oh, don't ever let those words come out of your mouth again. And I remember having that conversation with him because he was in Nigeria burying his mom. So I had to actually
Mhm.
get the news that it failed on my own. And he said, you are the joy of my life. I am
Period.
not going anywhere.
Okay.
And
You ain't
yeah.
either.
Yeah. And so it was hard.
Mm.
That was quarter 3. And I say it was, I had a breakdown, but it was a blessing. I say that because business wise, I could barely I only got out of bed when I had a discovery session. I would keep my camera off and I would lie to my clients and say that I was having issues with my camera. Because
Mm.
I just didn't look, I wasn't
Mhm.
presentable.
I get it.
And I could only focus on 2 things: client discovery sessions and client deliverables. So doing the work behind the scenes because it didn't require me to look a certain way. And I would probably get out of bed about twice a week. And this went on for about 4 weeks. And I remember that quarter, I made more money than I've ever made in my business in that quarter because I could only focus on the 2 things that I should be focusing on, right?
Mm.
Lead generation and client deliverables. So I
Mhm.
learned during that time, of course, I wasn't, paying attention until afterwards, that I don't have to do all the things. Like I was doing all the things as a form, thanks to my therapist telling me, as a form of distraction. I was doing all the things, right? And all the things wasn't necessarily making me more money. And when I stopped doing all of those things and just focused on the things I should be doing, I actually made more money in my business.
Wow.
Um, so that was the breaking point for me. I can't remember if there was a second part of that question, but I know you asked me about the breaking point.
I did, but we're going to get into that because I actually want to pause here because you have mentioned therapists more than once now, and yes, I really want us to touch on the importance
Mhm.
of you having a therapist along this journey, particularly because mental health is such
Yeah.
an underrated topic, right? Especially in the Black community. We are not
Mhm.
the first ones to go and get a therapist, right?
Yeah.
We are the strong ones, and you talk about this in your book, especially Black women. We are the strong ones. We'll get
Mhm.
through it. We'll survive. We're gonna put on our cape and we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna move on. We're gonna one day we're gonna look back and tell the story, right? Right. Okay.
Mhm.
But one, you said your therapist helped you to process, and one, this I think part of this was your personality type, Quisha.
Mhm.
Baby so bad. No, I gotta be the one to carry the baby. It's gotta be my ex. When
Yeah.
you have that strong personality and you make a plan in your head, the plan has to go.
Oh, control all the way. Which one of the, because what is the saying? God gives the hardest test to the smartest students, right? Or something like that, right? Surrender control was one of my weaknesses. Like I controlled the plan. I made the plan. I set the deadlines. I I worked the plan, right? And so absolutely I had to control the timeline and every single piece of this. You can't do that. There is no control with IVF, with infertility.
Right.
You just go along with the punches. And that's hard for an overachieving type A. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to say perfection. I'm not a perfectionist anymore. I used to be reformed perfectionist. That is one of the hardest things, but that lesson, that's why I said so many things I got out of that journey that
Right.
I believe have made me a better person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only did their therapist play a huge role in helping you become a reformed perfectionist, right? Helping you also have develop a different perspective when it came to building a family
Yeah.
versus making a baby, but
Mhm.
also playing a role in saving your marriage as well, because you talk about the strain that you and your husband had and how you all grieve differently, right?
Mhm.
We won't get too much into everything now because y'all got to get the book. But I wanted to point that out so that people understand the importance
Mhm.
of having a therapist along this journey and how it plays a role in your mental wellness. Now,
Yeah.
the second part of that question, I had asked, what was your breaking point? And then what was the turning point from that break to
Whew,
this?
that's a turning point.
How did you evolve into this Quisha, right?
Yeah.
When you reached that breaking point in your infertility journey, and you say, you
Mhm.
know what, I got to get myself together.
Yeah. I know when it started. It wasn't it's like grief. It I would have good days and bad days. And I know when it started, I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to a lot of fertility podcasts back
Mhm.
then. And the couple, they had so many failed attempts at IVF and they went out and purchased this expensive whatever. Can't remember what is vacuum or something. And
Mhm.
the host said there's a term for that, and because she said, I did the same thing, except I went on a grief tour. And I
Mhm.
was like, a grief tour? What is that? So I told my husband about it. And he said, you need to take a trip. You need to do that. You need to go on a grief tour. And so that summer, because we had our last failed cycle in May. And so that summer, I went on my grief tour. We spent a week on the beach for our anniversary. I went on a mother son cruise with my youngest son. And we went to like family reunion and other few other places as well. And I remember telling him, well, if my body is not in it, get somebody else to, if my eggs are not going to be in the process, get somebody else's body in the process and get somebody else to carry this baby. I was still very, it was like pouring salt on an open wound. I was still
Mhm.
very raw, still
Mhm.
very hurt, still very like, how can my body betray me like this,
Right.
And
Right.
so part of me was very indignant about, well, if I'm not in the process, I'm not, my body's not going to be in the process anymore because I've been through this for years at this point. And
Mhm.
so my last stop on the grief tour was Tijuana, Mexico, where I had the sleeve, gastric sleeve, which I had been wanting weight loss surgery for a while. Never qualified in the States because you got to be half sick and dead before they approve stuff a lot of times. So flew to Tijuana, had the weight loss surgery. And when I came back, my husband and I started working out with a personal trainer. We were working out 3 days a week. We were eating well, sleeping better than I slept in years. All
Yeah.
the joint pain that I had when I was on hormones and fertility treatments disappeared.
Mhm.
Have horrible pain in my joints, horrible plantar fasciitis. The doctors think I had an inflammatory reaction to the hormones, and everything disappeared. And I started feeling happy.
Mhm.
Of course, I was happy when I was, going on my grief tour and going to different places and being with family and things like that. But because I was feeling physically better,
Yes.
I started feeling mentally better, right? It's the same thing when your mental is not right, you feel all that in your body.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
for me, once I got my physical body together, I could tell a difference in my mental. I remember when we did go to Nigeria to do our egg donor with our gestational surrogate, I still wasn't 100% sold. I still feel like I was choosing the lesser of two evils. It was break up my marriage or have this baby with someone else's eggs, have a beautiful marriage and a beautiful life.
Mhm.
And just happen to have a child that doesn't share my DNA. So I was still processing that with my therapist, reading all the books on egg donorship and, egg donation and things like that. But when I think back to it, that was the turning point for me.
Yes. And I couldn't imagine, and I know you said in your book, that you would look at this child. Specifically, you said that you would have this baby and you didn't want to be out in the store somewhere or somebody say, "Oh, your baby looks just like you," knowing
Mm.
that it was someone else's egg
Yeah.
that couldn't
Yeah.
be that your baby would look like you. And that's a lot
Yeah.
to process.
I did not want, most people, that's what they want, right? They want a child that looks like them. And I remember being very adamant about, I do not want to choose a donor that looks like me, because I don't want to feel that every time somebody may say that. Now I know there's a term, I can't think of it now. I swear I still have prego brain. Something genetics. Oh, if y'all know it in the chat and you're watching this video, tell me what the term is. But it's basically, that saying where it's like you feed them so much till they look like you,
Uh-huh.
right? Well, that's true. It's a thing. It's been studied. I can't think of the word right now, but at the time I didn't know that. I was just like, I just want somebody that's completely opposite of
Mm.
who I am.
Wow. Wow. So you kind of grazed over the fact that y'all did a surrogate all the way in Nigeria, Quisha. So we're gonna run that back a little bit.
Okay.
We're gonna run it back, okay? Because people need to process this, all right?
Yeah.
So you had two failed IVF cycles. You ultimately decided, okay, we're gonna go with surrogacy. And you said
Mhm.
that was you choosing the lesser of two evils, which
Mhm.
totally understand, save your marriage. This man deserves a baby, right? And
Mhm.
so you guys decided to get a surrogate in Nigeria, where your husband is from.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Let
You.
me let me explain the thought process. And I'm speeding up here. So yes, there were two full rounds of IVF. There were two pauses. There was chemical menopause. There were so many. There was silent endometrial. There were so many other things. So
Yeah,
let me
we didn't
just
even
say
go.
that.
We didn't even go into the tidbits there. We
Yeah, there
did.
were so many other things. So by this time, um, we had said, not that we had put a dollar amount on it, but we had said we're not going to go into debt over this,
Mm-hmm.
and we did not want to take out loans.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank God that my husband is a hard worker and my business did well during COVID. And so if we did the egg donor route, plus a gestational surrogate here in the States at that time, it would have been anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000,
Mm-hmm.
which would not have been something we would have been able to do right then. We would have to save money or pursue loans or, things like that.
Hey, I'll carry
So
the baby.
what you say?
I said, I'll carry the baby.
Right. So we is naturally, of course, my husband's Nigerian. So I said, well, if we got to use somebody's eggs, let's just use someone that also has, the same,
Mm-hmm.
from the same area. Um, we went. He actually went when he was there to bury his mom, and went to visit a few agencies and things like that. So he did a little bit of footwork. Of course, I did a lot of research online. We did some virtual consultations and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was a lot cheaper, significantly cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with flying over there and hotel lodging, every all the things. It was significantly cheaper, but I was torn. I
Mm-hmm.
was still very much torn, because as a public health consultant and as an advocate, and as a social justice advocate, my heart was very much questioning: am I um, contributing to a system that is taking advantage of women in poverty?
Mm-hmm.
I struggled with that because this particular agency recruited their egg donors from the University of Lagos. They had to be between ages 21 and 25. And of course, they were compensated for donating their eggs, as many egg donors are and sperm donors are. And so I was worried about their health as they got older. Are they going to have, are they going to have eggs left of their own,
Mhm.
when they get to my age? I was worried about the surrogate. So we were doing gestation. Surrogacy is anonymous in Nigeria, which I did not like. I do understand
Right.
because it protects the intended parents. But I worried about the same. How many times has she done this before? What's the state of her body? It was an emotional roller coaster. The only words I could think of, it was gut wrenching.
Mhm.
Um, but it was also an option that was available to us.
Right.
And we could have done it in the States, or we could have done it there and had the same culture as my husband. And that's ultimately why we chose there, financially and for cultural purposes.
Understandably so. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. And yet, it's still, even though surrogacy in Nigeria was significantly cheaper than the US, you explained that your entire infertility journey still cost you nearly $100,000.
Yeah, very close to. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Medication, um, therapy, flights, procedures, lots of procedures. Yeah, very, very close to.
Wow. And so let's speed things along here, Quisha,
Okay.
because obviously the grief tour you talk about played a significant role, obviously one in your mental health, right? Just to be able to get away and escape the reality of the needles, the failed IVF cycles,
Mhm.
the surrogacy, all the things, right? So you had a mental escape for a while during your grief tour, but
Mhm.
ultimately the Quisha we see here evolved over time, right?
Yeah.
But the beginning of this new Quisha began during that grief tour, like you mentioned, where your last stop was your weight loss surgery in Mexico. And you said that before you went to have surgery, you were on what you call an anti-inflammatory diet, right?
That's what I call it. That's not what it was, but it
Right.
was a clean diet, right? It may have been high protein, low carb. They just called it a pre-op diet, is what they
Right.
called it, but it was certainly anti-inflammatory. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so the clean diet, the weight loss surgery that ultimately led to your weight loss, the therapy, right? You got into yoga, you said, right?
No, yoga was after baby.
Oh, was it?
Yoga was
Okay.
after baby. Yeah.
So the personal trainer then and working out with your husband 3 days a
Hmm.
week as
Hmm.
well
Hmm.
ultimately began to shape and
Hmm.
transform or evolve into now your work that you do with Fertile Ground. So let's talk a little bit about that and what
Talk
inspired
about.
that work that you do now as a fertility doula, because we hear
Yeah.
doula, right?
Yeah.
But fertility doula is very specific. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I had the baby actually. And I was sitting with a friend. We were Googling some things. She does a lot of work in women's health. And I was like, what is this fertility doula? I don't even remember how we got on the site. And I looked at it. This was an international school, so a school out of Canada that provides certification as a fertility doula. And when I read what a fertility doula is and does, it was everything that I felt like I needed. So
Mhm.
my therapist was not a fertility therapist, women's health therapist, right? She was a therapist. She was sweet. She was nice. She was kind. And she happened to have another Black female my age going through IVF. So,
Mhm.
because she had been working with that woman for a couple of years, she could relate to some of the things that I was saying.
Right.
But did I think I said she could sympathize, but she couldn't empathize, right? She
Right.
had no lived experience with this. And so, the thing that I really liked about fertility doulas is they focus on the psychosocial aspect of things that you're going through.
Mhm.
And I say this a lot because I work with community health workers, and I always say, there's enough people in healthcare that are taking care of a patient's medical needs or healthcare needs. There's not nearly enough people that are taking care of a patient's social needs, right? And so it's the same thing with women that are navigating infertility as well. You've got your healthcare team, they cannot be replaced. You've got the doctor, you've got the nurse, but you don't always have someone that can help you prep before a fertility appointment, that can give you the questions to ask, that can hold your hand during the 2 week wait when you're waiting to see if if you've conceived or not. And or even if you have if you're told you need to use donor sperm or donor eggs, that can walk you through that process or even talk to you about what's it like navigating care in another country. Because by this time, I've been a medical tourist in Mexico, I've been a medical tourist in Nigeria. And so
Yes.
when I looked at everything that a fertility doula does, and ultimately for those of you, I'm sure like Whitney said, you've heard of doula, right? You've got birth doula that helps women give birth, right? You've
Mhm.
got postpartum doulas that take care of women after they've had the baby. You even have death doulas or bereavement doulas that work with a family as someone is preparing to transition and even afterwards. But a fertility doula helps a woman to conceive or to build her family. And
Mhm.
that could be, whether they're doing adoption, surrogacy, gamete, which is egg or sperm donation, IVF, IUI, natural conception, even. And so I know from my lived experience, this is an area that is often overlooked. This
Yes.
population of women is often overlooked, especially if it's secondary, which is what I had. There's this connotation almost, even though it's not spoken, that you already got kids, what you tripping for? Right?
Mhm.
Right. And
Mhm.
so for me, I didn't feel like at the time that I had permission to grieve these losses. And there are many, many losses. And I write about that in the book because I already had children. And so knowing what the role of a fertility doula meant, or learning what it meant, and then it married perfectly with my lived experience and the things that I went through. And I said, well, God, is this why? Is this what you put me through this for? And then
Yeah.
also, because I am a trainer, we develop courses, curriculum, and things with my business. I'm ultimately like, do I need to bring this training to other industries, to other, you know what I'm saying? So everything just started making sense. And let me tell you how yoga came into play. I felt like my body, after going through pregnancy and a 53-hour labor,
Mm.
and bed rest, because I toward the third trimester I had some cardiac issues and things. I just didn't feel like going back to lifting weights and doing hit training 3 times a week.
Mm.
And so in January of this year, I said, I just want to do something different. I want
Mhm.
to slow down, but I still want to be very much, active and move my body. And so I started doing yoga. And very soon, as I'm following new people, and you know how you go to Instagram and you're following yogis and all this, and I'm like, wait a minute, yoga for fertility, let me check this out.
Yeah.
And, scientific brain, nurse, public health consultant, I found out that this is evidence based. It's been studied by Harvard University, the connection between yoga and fertility. And it
Mm.
all basically stems that yoga, or how can I put this so that it's simple? Um, and when you're going through infertility, your body is basically kind of in a fight or flight. You're highly stressed. We already talked about what it does to your psyche, to your emotions, to your mental health. And it's not a perfect um, conduit to get pregnant, right?
Mhm.
However, when your body is well rested and well nourished, and your stress is managed, and you're calm and you're relaxed, and you've got good blood flow and all of the things, it makes it a very good environment for getting pregnant. And so this has been studied and researched. And so when I saw that, I thought, this would be a good service to offer in addition to my support and education services that I offer as a doula. So that's how yoga came into the picture. It's something I love, something I practice 3 to 4 times a week. I'm actually getting my 200-hour teacher training right
Wow.
now. And
Okay, girl.
so, yeah, you know me. Look, you know me by now. I don't do anything halfway.
Period. Yes, I love that. So listen, we kind of skipped over a significant detail, Quisha,
Yeah.
and that is we talked about you having a surrogate in Nigeria, and now we're like, oh yeah, you got pregnant, you had a baby. So people probably wondering, well, what happened with the surrogate?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
let's touch on that. Obviously the surrogate is significant now, okay? Because you carry that baby, okay, just like it God intended for you to. But
Yeah.
let's go ahead and close the gap just a little bit for the people.
We flew back home. We were told that we would find out 2 weeks later, of course. So
Mhm.
that 2 week wait again. And I was on pins and needles. I was extremely anxious and I was jet lagged from just, the time and distance of traveling. And I thought I was sick. And I remember the day before we were to find the news out about the surrogate, I remember telling my husband, something is wrong with me. I am sick. And I realized that my cycle was late. And I said, I'm 9 days late. Like I'm never late, but I'm not pregnant because the doctor told me I can't, one, you can't unblock your tubes naturally,
Mhm.
right? And that basically my eggs were a wash. And so I knew it wasn't that. But I do know you have to rule things out. So I said, I'm going to go to CVS. I'm going to get a pregnancy test. We'll just find out both in the morning.
Right.
And we went to sleep. We got the call around 4:30 in the morning, our time, and we found out that the surrogate did not get pregnant.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was 3 embryos. So there were 3 embryos that were implanted into our surrogate. Um, Yeah. And so, as you can imagine, absolutely defeated,
Mhm.
downcast. First thing my husband was like, more money. He's like, more money down the drain. And I said, okay, let me just go in here and get this over with.
Mhm.
And took the pregnancy test, and immediately it was positive, and we were stunned
Immediately.
the
Because
same day. And so what I just said, that is where people are like, oh, you got
yeah.
to write this in a book.
Yes. 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 Because
Yeah,
it's interesting because I know that you and I had a conversation. You were like, "Yeah, we're gonna have a surrogate in Nigeria," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's awesome." And then you said, "I got something to tell you." I don't even know why we were meeting because you weren't ready to write the book then.
I don't know either. Oh, we were making revisions to public health entrepreneurship.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. And you said, "I got something to tell you." I said, "Okay, girl, what you got to tell me? Spill the tea." You said, "I'm pregnant." And I said, "What?"
Yeah.
And I listened, I got off that Zoom with you that day and I went to my mom in tears. I said,
Everybody I know and everybody I told was in tears. Yeah.
no, literally. And I didn't even know the full story then.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the full story, but I knew that you guys were hoping and praying for a baby. And so I
Yeah.
was just so overjoyed for you. And listen, to fly all the way to Nigeria for another woman to get pregnant just to come home,
Yeah.
it was always a part of the plan.
Yes. Yeah.
It was always a part of the plan, Quisha. Now, it wasn't in your timing.
And that's what I had to learn.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so, if you had one piece of advice, Quisha, because we're going to go ahead and wrap this up because we want everybody to go ahead and grab a digital copy of the book. Because listen, y'all got to fill in the gaps for yourself. We're not giving away no more tonight because we've covered a lot, but there's so much more in between that we did not even touch on.
Mhm.
Particularly if you are a woman who is facing a similar challenge, then there is so much more inspiration and encouragement for you that lies within the
Yeah.
pages of
Yeah.
that book. You don't want to delay. Okay. You
Mhm.
don't want to delay. And so, Quisha, if there is one piece of advice that you have for any woman who is facing similar struggles,
Mhm.
what would that be?
Don't ask me to give one piece. Don't ask me to give one piece.
Listen, this your live. Say what you want to say.
Okay, maybe I'll give 3 things. One, you can't carry this burden alone. right?
Mm,
And not to say it can be a burden in a good way and a bad way. It just depends.
mm,
But it's not, we're not designed to do life alone anyway.
right.
And I know I have learned, I'll say this after I had the baby, people kept asking me, "Oh, you're in such a good mood. You're such your spirits. Like, you didn't have postpartum?" Everybody. And I was like, I didn't know postpartum was so prevalent.
Mm,
And so when I finally, about the sixth or seventh month, I started looking at people that had expressed having postpartum versus me. And one of the things that I say is I have really good support.
yes.
And I think that when we try to shoulder the brunt of burdens alone, that contributes to the grief that
Yes.
we experience when we go through. So one thing I will say, I'm not going to say necessarily get in community, because you want to be protective of who you share such personal um, information with, but
Absolutely.
find your tribe, find your person or people that can walk this journey with you.
Hmm.
I will say, secondly, everybody's not going to understand.
Right.
They're going to try their best to um, support you, but they are going to say things that are going to be hurtful.
Mm,
Um, and you have to, one, be able to show grace, but also two, be able to set your boundaries.
yes.
And I write about setting boundaries in the book to
Yeah.
preserve your mental and emotional health.
Hmm.
And three, I will say, work on you and your identity. When people say, like, oh, oh, you're a fertility doula, you can guarantee me a baby. I don't even guarantee you a baby.
Right.
What I think I do more as a fertility doula, and what I aim to do more of as a fertility doula, is help you find who you are in spite of what you're going through. Because when you're going through infertility, the world is going to say you're barren,
Hmm.
you are you're broken,
Hmm.
right? You are less than a woman, you are all of these things. But God does not call you those things.
No, he does not.
And the reason I titled the book Fertile Ground is, a lot of times there are things happening under the ground that we cannot see.
That's right.
And just because we can't see all the shifting and moving and bending doesn't mean that the ground beneath us is not fertile. And so I want you to tend to your soil, your
Yes.
mind, your body, your womb, your spirit in the meantime, and let God do what he's going to do underneath the soil.
Ooh, come on
So
now. Yes.
so those are the three things that I would leave with women that are going through this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm so proud of you, Krisha.
Thank you. Thank you. And let me just say, if you're trying to publish a book, Whitney is a joy to work with. Now, I do have a particular type of personality, like she said. Whitney would always say, I'll be like, I know what I want, I know what I want. But I will say I've worked with a lot of coaches, consultants, and things, throughout my career. And you have a very streamlined process.
Thank
It's very easy. It's very step by step. There's no kind of guessing. You just take all of the stress out of the process. And so I want to thank you. And I will say this: when I signed up for the two books, I was supposed to have those two books done within a certain particular time. But
you.
I thank you for seeing where I was, seeing that I was not ready, but
Hmm.
still saying you have a book in you, and I'm going to be here when you get ready to do that.
That's right.
And so I appreciate that, because everything I've said, I remember when we talked about this in May, and I said, I don't want to do a full launch. I'm being obedient. This book is going to get into the hands of the women it's supposed to, because
Mhm.
God is going to make sure that it does.
That's right.
And every step of the way, you're just like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to roll.
That's
So
right.
I appreciate you for being my partner in helping me spread my messages into the world. You will be the only person that I will ever publish a book with.
Oh, that means a lot to me. I'm held onto these lashes the whole live now. Thank you so much. That truly means a lot. It has also been a joy to work with you. Listen, I told my mom, I said, Quisha, I just literally told her before we got on this live, I said, I see a difference in Quisha.
Yeah.
She's so free now. And I
Yeah.
love that for you. And you deserve that.
Thank
And
you.
I'm
Thank you.
excited for all the women who you are going to be able to assist in achieving their freedom as well.
Thank you. I
Absolutely.
claim that. I claim that. Thank you.
Absolutely, for sure. So, you guys, thank you so, so much for tuning in to the virtual release of Fertile Ground, one woman's journey through infertility where hope and heartbreak coexist. Quisha, it has been a pleasure and an absolute honor. Before we log off tonight, please tell everyone how they can get in contact with you, particularly if they are looking to book your services.
Yeah, so visit the website fertilegroundus.com. The US stands for United States. Wink, wink. And my email is fertilegroundus@gmail. And you can follow me on social media at Fertile Ground with Quisha. And that is Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Listen, she got it all now. You don't have any excuse. Pick one, all right? Pick one and be blessed. You all have an amazing night. Thanks, Quisha. Until next
Thank you, Whitney. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
night.